button is. Good morning, Brian.
Hi, Hayley. I love the space that you're in. That window to my left, you're right, is really pretty, really pretty.
Thing.
Hayley, I just had something on my mind I wanted to throw out to you, and it's about the hero's journey, which I've looked up the definition of, and just so that I'm sure that it's about a person being called to an adventure or to a challenge, and on the way, they may have mentors, but they face this challenge and they win, and then they come home a changed person. Is that how you understand it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me throw out the name of somebody who I think made the hero's journey, because her name is in the news, and her name is Cecilia Gentili. She's a woman who died recently. She was forced into sex work in Argentina, where she was born, and apparently that's not uncommon for women to get forced into sex work. And then she came to the US, and she became a really important person in the transgender community. She herself was transgender. She didn't try to hide anything about her sex worker background. She was an advocate for sex workers in New York City, and lesbian, gay, bisexual people. And there was a big funeral at St. Patrick's. In fact, the priest, who is the rector, said, the only time we have these many people is Easter Sunday. It was 1,000 people, including Billy Porter. You know Billy Porter's name? He's a Black gay actor and just an amazing guy. So they had this spectacular funeral, and I think I'm understanding that at some point the rector realized what was going on and cut off the mic. But a lot of people came forward and talked about Saint Cecilia, the patron saint of horrors, one woman said in Spanish. And it just feels to me like she's a really good example of somebody who was called from her place to face a challenge. And the challenge was the laws and the treatment of transgender people and of sex workers in New York City. And in many ways, she won the challenge and then returned home without getting political, right, about whether they should have told the church in advance that she was transsexual. The Catholic Church is upset that they didn't give accurate information. I've even had a friend email me thinking that they should have told the church about this. Beyond that question, what do you think about what I've said to you so far?
I mean, it sounds amazing. I think it sounds an amazing example of a human's life and how many people we touch in one life, because I imagine that those people that went into St. Patrick's Church was just a pin drop of the people she impacted.
There were 1,000 people there.
For me, that's it. And I realize that, my opinion and my perspective and how I see things is not always convenient to other people. For me, what's important and what touches my heart and what I celebrate is the humanity of it. And an example of a lovely human life that we should all take a step back and be like, wow, what can I learn or what can I integrate that made this person so warmly received, not only in life, but also in death?
Absolutely, because in her death, she brought into St. Patrick's Cathedral a lot of prostitutes street workers who never would have been in there otherwise, except for her funeral. And that's pretty powerful. I mean, you talk about the number of lives that are touched. I agree with you, Hayley, that anything Cecilia did for somebody got done again by that person for somebody else. And even this discussion that we're having at this moment is an extension of her life, right? In terms of what she
Absolutely.
did.
And I think, we both believe in sort of the higher power, whether it be God or source energy, whatever we call it, the Holy Spirit, whatever it is, it's an extension of her, but ultimately it's an extension of that pure human, not human, but the pure source energy, the pure God energy. And I think it's, God's work continues, and I think it is God's plan to use St. Patrick's as a vehicle for more love.
Mm,
I think
yeah,
in
that's
there,
not how they
it's not
that's
how
not
to
how
see
they
it, but I
responded, but
think, we have to, all of us have to take a look at the double standards that we hold. And if we say that God does work, then God does work in all ways, in all places, in all things, in all people, not just
yeah,
in specific chosen situations which are convenient. So I think, her legacy continues in the fact that you know, she was recognized in St. Patrick's. St. Patrick's wanted her there. The cathedral wanted her there because
uh-huh.
otherwise it wouldn't have been available. It would have been much harder to get into.
Right. The energy around it.
Yeah,
The
it was
Tao.
meant for her. The fact that there's possibly an outcry about it, I say fantastic, good. Let them talk
Mhm.
about it, and hopefully they will see the double standard and be able to look at themselves and be like, which God are you supporting?
Exactly. And that's what all the discussion is about. She defined herself, named herself as atheist, not because she didn't believe in God, but she couldn't find a church in which she felt welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to
And
me, that isn't atheism.
no,
That's just
it's
being real.
yeah, that's just saying kind of, what, I don't know where I belong. Interestingly, the reading in the Tao this morning for Ray and me contained the statement, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher, and,
And vice
and what
versa,
is a
no?
bad man but a good man's job.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so the teacher is available, but the man or woman or binary person that considers themselves good, like maybe the rector at St. Patrick's, still has the job, that's their life job, of taking care of those they think aren't good.
And I
And I
think,
don't mean good immoral. They could be not good because they're racist, right?
right. And I think, at the individual level, because I think that I view that as more of the collective, as a rector of a church, it is your job spec, to take in the people that seek comfort. That's just my definition of a church that I learned in all my years of being taught church and Christianity. But I think on an individual level, it continues to be his job to realize ways in which he can provide a better job.
Uh-huh.
Where he is being exclusive, he needs to be able to see that so that he can be more inclusive.
I tell the story in my latest post and column about, and you've heard me tell this, that my first speaking engagement after I was fired for being gay was at a home. And the lady at the door said, the lady in the green blazer says she's going to throw up when you walk in the room. And and I tell the story that the lady in the green blazer was the last one to leave the room that night. once she got past her fear, she just had 100 questions. And so I wrote about the fact that we run into these ladies in green blazers, throughout our life.
And they are the best teachers.
And if they throw up, that's on them, not me, right? I got an email from an Irish priest from Ireland, he was writing, whose bishop called him in to talk to him because he had, the rumor in the diocese was that this particular priest was gay. And the bishop's only concern was word would get out and conservative Catholics would, start pounding on the door wanting to get rid of him. But the person who wrote to me, who I think is on the hero's journey, said that while he was in the bishop's quarters, he just kept experiencing his gayness growing and glowing, because he had this conflict before between priesthood and being gay, but now it was becoming clearer to him that he needed to spend time on being gay, right?
Being him.
I wrote him and said, don't quit the priesthood until you find a job, because you got to take care of yourself. But there are just so many people. I mean, all of us in life have these experiences that challenge us and call us forth to be bigger than we are, or bigger than we think we are.
And I think, in that being called forth to be bigger and better than we are, that requires a decision that is both a yes and a no, or multiple decisions that are yeses and nos. It's not always just a yes.
Yes. Give an example.
I think, if we take it back to your reading from the Tao this morning, that, the good man and the bad man, and they're both each other's teachers and listeners. I think sometimes we have to realize that we're not always the teacher to that specific person. Sometimes we have to say no because that person's being a teacher to us. We have to realize that we're not always the teacher, and bad situations don't always require a yes, or difficult people.
Agreed. Sometimes you see the difficult person and you want to step in and make things right, but it's not the right time. And they're not asking you for help.
And even I think sometimes when they do ask for help, we have to realize that, and be humble enough to realize that the help that they need is not the help that I can give.
Yeah.
And I think, there's a no in that, which is, no, I can't help you. Please look somewhere else, or look for this person.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we get very wrapped up in sort of an ego mind of, if somebody's asking us for help, we have to help. We have to figure it out. Sometimes the best and most helpful advice is simply, no, I'm not the right person for this.
I think it can be both, Hayley. If you came to me seeking advice on something that I was not trained to address, something very serious, maybe autism in your family, or something that I don't have a lot of information on, I can still sit with you and listen to you, and when there is something that I can relate to and offer counsel on, do so. But start off by saying I'm not the right person. But let's talk, and let me hear what's going on for you. I just had that happen. A person called me. We had arranged the phone call, and called and wanted to talk about the cancer diagnosis that she had. And there were, she had a lot of physical stuff that was going on, which I'm totally unable to talk about with any authority. But we talked about how we have to celebrate our end of life victories. Instead of thinking, I'm not going to have a chance to do this again, right? Which people our age are thinking. I'm not going to be able to do that again, and I really enjoyed it. Focus on the fact that you are doing it now and experience that rather than grieving the future.
You know, it's just about being present.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we speak about this often because it's something both of us strive for, but, you know, striving to be present and not worrying about either the past or the future, or what the future is going to look like with or without you. It's all we're asked to do. And it is in that present moment that we are able to give the best counsel, the best love, the best of everything. And I think it's a constant challenge and it's difficult to continually come back to the present moment and to do what it takes to be present. I think that's, you know, why the hero's journey is somewhat so difficult, is because we underestimate how much effort it takes to be present.
Mm-hmm. And once we are present, it can slip away in a second, right? Thought.
Yeah, and I think once you become present, at least for me, once I'm present, it becomes invaluable. So I now want to protect that moment and more moments of it. So that's, I think, continues the hero's journey, where you start being very conscious of what enables you to be present and what pulls you out of being present. And I put boundaries around both of those things. If it allows me to be present, I nurture it, I protect it. If it pulls me out of being present, I have to put boundaries and say, this can't come any closer to me.
Mm-hmm. I just had a niece and her two daughters visit, and the kids went crazy over Sebastian.
Oh, I bet.
And one of them in particular, when she was in the pool, Sebastian leapt and leapt and leapt off the side of the pool into the water 30 times maybe to swim to her, to be near her. And she's a good enough swimmer and strong enough that she could, wasn't frightened of this, creature coming towards her. And my mind was thinking about, I wonder what I should make for lunch for them. I wonder if they're hungry. Is it a good idea that we're going to this restaurant? And this voice said, stop, look at that dog and that girl and be in the moment of her and his excitement. Stop, watch. And that's the bringing back into the moment, right? A thought can enter after you've had that experience and take you away from the moment pretty easily. But being called to be in the moment is such a magnificent experience.
It really is. And following that call, following the voice that says be present, and then you're present and you're just like, oh, well, that wasn't
oh my God.
hard. And look at
my God,
it feels really good.
Yeah, you see the color of the bougainvillea, and you watch the excitement of the kids, and you look at the blue water of the pool, and you think, I'm in heaven. Does it get better than this? Just stop, Brian, and be present to it.
This very much resonates because I've been practicing that a lot lately, of just being present and to sort of stop finding what's wrong with it and just be in what's right with it. And I also have conversations in terms of, okay, there's, this idea of positive mindset and just think your way out of things. And a lot of people will say, well, if you're always just finding the right, you're being ignorant, or you're choosing to be ignorant, or you're choosing to be naive just by focusing on the good stuff. And for me, I see them as two totally different things. I'm not choosing to be ignorant in that moment. I'm well aware of the good and the bad happening. I'm just choosing to anchor with the good at that point in time. And so an
Yes.
example of this would be, it's been really cold and dry lately. And I was walking to the market the other day, and it was cold, and I heard myself going like, oh, this is so cold and it's so dry. Oh, my skin is so dry. I need to get lotion. And then I was just like, hang on a minute. The sun is shining. There's this beautiful blue sky. You have the privilege of walking safely. Enjoy.
Mhm.
You want to do that. And I think that's what we're talking about when we're choosing to become fully present. We're well aware of everything that's around us. We're just choosing to go with what feels good.
And that does not mean that we're not aware, of what's going on in the Middle East. Sometimes people get angry when you're talking about being in the present moment, and the present moment is heaven, and they're saying, well, that's pretty fine for you, but what about the people who are dying in Gaza? I can't do anything for the people in Gaza. I
No,
can't do anything. I can send them loving thoughts, as I send loving thoughts to the Jewish people, who were attacked. But beyond that, giving them time in my mind and in my heart, I can't do anything more. And so I go back to what I know works for me and for the people around me, which is being present with loving kindness and gratitude.
I am very much aligned with you on that. I have, since October, really struggled with the inhumanity of certain conflicts, and especially the double standards around inhumanity. And I can very easily go into enormous stress. And I realize that when I'm in enormous stress because I can't figure it out, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I don't know how I'm supposed to apply myself, I'm no good to anybody at that point in time.
Mm.
I'm now becoming a hindrance. And I think I firmly believe that in order for things to change at the collective, we have to do it at the individual first for it to be reflected in the collective. And we have to first be able to look at these things and ask the question, if I think that that's bad, what am I doing in my life where I'm projecting exactly that? And fix that. Let me put my energy on fixing that. And
And that's the hero's journey.
I think,
That's the hero's journey.
yeah, I think if we all took a step back and asked that question of ourselves first, we would move much quicker to a place where we wouldn't have to observe and witness this.
And once you've had a look at the landscape, right? It's in your mind and it's always going to be there. I think, oh, I'll never see Yosemite Park again. Doesn't matter. You remember what you saw, right? So goodness is out there and it's available to us. And it can be the incentive to get out of the yucky spot that we're in, that we know that life is not all yuck. Life has opportunities for extraordinary joy. Well, let's remember what brought me that joy. Well, one was being positive and kind and loving and thankful. Oh, you're right.
Let's do that today.
I'm feeling better already, right?
I think I don't underestimate how difficult it is to be present in this day and age, especially with so much information constantly coming to us, because even if you go off of social media and media, all of the conversations are reflected that. So it's incredibly
Mm-hmm.
difficult to create a bubble of just positivity. And within that, incredibly difficult to be present. But I think, the hero's journey, the difficulty, the pain is being present and choosing to be that one person that says, I'm just going to sit and find something beautiful to look at and be present with that.
What's the biggest threat to your bubble of positivity in your life?
The biggest threat is me not
Not
being,
right now. Pardon
yeah,
me?
not being present.
Not being present.
Honestly, it's the biggest threat.
The biggest threat to you, your bubble of positivity, is not being present.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's good. I was wondering whether or not, as we go through the stages of aging, whether the threat to that positivity changes or shifts. But I agree with you that the basic answer is not being in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can sit and fuss about the number of friends who are dying because I'm older, and feel like, okay, I'm not happy anymore. Or I can say, you know what, they want the best for you. Those friends who have gone on, they want you to be in the moment, right? They don't want you grieving about their passing over and over again. Get back to being in the moment, Brian, because that's what I want for you.
I think what always helps me is to remember prayers. And nobody ever prays, regardless of how good or bad or where they are on the political spectrum. Nobody prays that their loved ones will experience pain. Nobody prays that when I die, I want everybody to be miserable. Nobody prays that way.
Uh-huh.
They always pray for love, for health, for success, for happiness. And I think if we remember and be fully present with the blessings that we have and the prayers that are just all waiting to come into us, all of those prayers are for our happiness. So it's our responsibility to be fully present and to say, I accept your prayer.
And I was thinking about, when you were talking about being fully present and not wishing ill on anyone else, that what we know about the phone calls that were made by people in the Twin Towers and the World Center and on the airplanes that went down, what we have recorded is everyone trying to contact their partner to say, I love you.
Mm-hmm. And
Now,
please
the
be
partner,
like, please move on, please be happy.
yeah, if you if you have the time to to get all that out, but I've told you that I love you. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like I need to call you. Maybe I feel like I would need to call Ray. Maybe it's a goodbye,
I
maybe
think
it's
I think it's something that happens in the moment of clarity that you can't plan right now, because I don't think you've experienced or have any recollection of that kind of clarity that happens when you're at that decision point or you're at that juncture of leaving. So I think it would be very difficult to be able to say, this is what I'm going to do, because I think what we do in that moment is so pure that we're unable to tap into it sort of at this point in time.
right. And this is what I shared with my on the call that I had with my friend, is that we are today where it's the sum total of all of our choices,
Mm-hmm.
where we are. And that when we leave this experience, our ability to feel at peace with it is influenced a lot by the choices we made and the loving kindness that we had for others and still have.
I think that's incredibly important what you just said. which is basically using peace as your measure of success. How well have I done in this in my life? For me, that's how much peace am I feeling. So at the end of every day, or when I make big decisions, my number one sort of line in the sand is, does this bring me peace?
Does it bring me peace? And if it doesn't, what's going on and what choice do I need to make in order for it to be eliminated, so that I feel that peace, right?
Right.
It can be, as hard as it is, it can be, that friendship is not working. It's just not. When I'm with that person, I leave feeling empty or dirty or whatever. I've got to pull back because I don't feel at peace when I go to bed at night. I don't like all the gossiping we did.
And I think, we spoke about this in a couple of our other podcasts, is sort of listening to the body, and the body keeps score, the body giving us pain when we're doing things that aren't fully aligned. And I experienced that this week, where I had somebody reach out to me and say, from a very entitled position, you need to respond to my email. And immediately I was just like, no, like that's not the way I communicate with my people. And it's not the way that is going to get me to communicate with you. But as soon as I read that email, I felt pain. And I was like, what is this pain?
Mm-hmm.
We have to listen to our body. We have to listen to our mind. We have to listen to our heart and be able to sit with it and be like, all right, what about this feels so bad? And what is the best thing for me to do? Because in that pain, in the feeling bad, is the answer. And I think it takes me a little while for me to realize, oh, that pain that I'm feeling has everything to do with that email. So I can't just ignore the email. I have to do something about the email.
And if you don't mind, how did you come to peace with it? With the bad you felt?
Once I recognized that the pain had to do with the email, the pain subsided. Once I was like, all right, I figured it out, I need to do something here. It was then sort of, I had a conversation with one of my friends where I was like, I don't want to even answer this. I just want to delete it. Like I have an excuse to delete it, but it feels like it doesn't honor me. And so we were talking and we basically came to, you just have to tell the truth. You have to respond and say, this is not the way that I communicate. And at this point in time, I'm not willing to put energy into having a relationship with you. And I think it's tough. Telling the truth like that is tough, because immediately as we're having this conversation, I could feel myself going like, oh, well, what if they're really mad at me?
Uh-huh.
I don't want anybody to be mad at me.
Well, not just that, is there going to be payback? Is the person going to not just be mad at you, but try to hurt you? I don't mean physically, but your reputation or, whatever. Because people don't like being shut out. People don't like being told, because they think you're making a big judgment about them rather than about the energy.
Ultimately, we are making a judgment, a discernment that the way that you're behaving, your behavior isn't aligned with me. I think, that can very easily be understood as a judgment that I don't want to be around you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they have every right to feel judged. It's just their decision on what they're going to do about it. Are they going to laugh out and make other people hurt for that? Or are they going to take a step back and be like, what about my behavior is weird?
That's where I think the answer is, Hayley, is that when I said we don't judge them, I mean, we don't judge the person. We're judging their behavior. Right. And we're saying that the behavior is something that I can't be around. True. Because it impacts me negatively. So the person who we push back needn't take it personally. If they sit and think with it, they can figure out But she didn't say that I'm an ass. She just said that my style is something that doesn't blend with hers. So I don't need to get all defensive and upset about this. But maybe I should take a look at my behavior.
We
Right?
can only hope. We can only hope.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well,
You know, it's, I
you're
think it's, you know, this whole judgment thing. And I think, thank you for making that very clear point about we're judging the behavior, not the actual person. It's, I do have some people in my life where I have questioned, like, why am I still interacting with this person? And the answer I get is to tell the truth every single time. If they're willing to come back for the truth, keep telling the truth. And it's an interesting, because we're talking about it, brought it up in my mind. It's interesting because it's really been like a sticky point in my life where I'm like, I've told this person I don't want to have anything to do with them, and they still keep coming back. What's the point here? And I keep hearing, tell the truth, tell the truth. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why do they keep coming back? And I think, you know, coming back to what you were talking about with the Tao, sometimes we teach just by telling the cold, hard truth. And if a person keeps coming back for that, they're still looking for the truth and they're still open to the truth.
yes. Yeah. If you know what, a good concrete example of this, Hayley, is that when somebody asks to be a friend of mine on Facebook, and you're limited, 5,000 is it, and I'm getting close. I take a look at their profile to see if they're, is this a hoax or is this real? Is this person ever been, do they put stuff on Facebook? So I've had the experience of having said yes, and then the next thing I get in private messaging is a pornographic picture. And instead of immediately blocking them, I give them a chance. I write and I say, I don't want to receive that from you. When I accepted your request for friendship, I assumed it was because there was something that I say or do that makes you feel good. So I'm not going to block you at this point, but please don't ever send another picture like that. And generally the response I get is, thank you for telling me. I won't.
I can't believe that you respond to every single friend request.
Oh, I do. Every single friend request I get, I go to and I say, okay, when was the last time they had an entry on Facebook? If it's 2021, I delete. I say no. This is not. You're not serious.
So they have to be active.
They have to have something on their page that shows that they're interested in a friendship that will enhance their life, right? Or mine, but they don't know that I don't read Facebook posts. I'm a terrible Facebook. I put stuff out there. I hope people read it and enjoy it, but I don't look at their stuff. There's too much. And Facebook has changed so much. Do you know, and I don't know how they get all this information, but do you know that every other post on my Facebook when I open up is about publishing your book? Every other post is, I can help you sell your book. How do you even know I have a book? And why is that all the ads that I'm getting? It's because the algorithms are, they work. So I just go through it and look for maybe one or two things that, what I most enjoy seeing on Facebook are the scenes of people helping animals that are in trouble, right? like the sheep that gets stuck in a hole, and a driver stops, and gets out, and then another driver stops and gets out, and together they're working hard to get this sheep out of the crevice that it has fallen into. And hope, I love those because
Does
it shows me the kindness that we have within us.
I think that's one of the most amazing things about social media is that it does actually show the best of humanity, just as much as it also shows some of the worst of humanity. It also shows, it again depends on what you want to look at. It does show humans doing amazing things. Do you consider Facebook helping or hindering you being present?
I I feel that it helps me. And let me tell you why. I mean, Ray said to me the other day, you're on your iPad too much. And I said, that's a judgment. He
Of
says,
my
you're right.
behavior.
Yeah. I said, that's a judgment. And he agreed and apologized. And um, I write Hayley to be present in the moment. When I write, what I'm doing is I'm acknowledging feelings that I'm having, right? Like being upset about how the church reacted to Cecilia uh, Gentili. Being present for me is sitting with that thought and wondering, okay, what are you going to do with it? I don't write in the hopes of getting a following. I seriously don't. It's nice to get somebody saying, oh my God, you said exactly what I want to say, but don't know how to say it. I feel good about that. But it does help me be in the moment because it helps me observe, right? Now, there can be lots of times that I'm there typing and something's going on that I should be paying attention to. I think that's where you're going with that, is that you can get consumed by, but that's, Hayley, why I don't go to Twitter and I don't go to Instagram and I don't go to anything to read other people's stuff. I don't, if I happen to see, them rescuing again an animal, I'll stop and play it, and be happy. I'm in the moment of that happening, right? But you're right. If I'm spending too much time, but you know what, Hayley, I answer every single comment that is made to me. I answer. Now it may be just a heart, right?
But you acknowledge it.
To acknowledge it. I mean, it was overwhelming, but I got over 1,000 people wishing me happy birthday. Right? 700 of whom left a message. Right? And I answered every 700 of them, if even with the heart. I know some people put on Facebook, thank you to everyone who helped me celebrate my birthday. Yeah, and I get that. And I understand why, because it took me almost 2 days to respond, especially if somebody said something about me or about our relationship. And I thought, I've got to acknowledge this. I can't just let it float there and have the person feel that I didn't read it, I didn't take it in, I didn't like it. So I spent a lot of time acknowledging the loving kindness of others.
So it's joyful time for you, not so much stressful time.
Well,
I hear 700 and I'm immediately like, oh, how am I ever going to get?
Yeah.
Do you find joy in responding to those people and making sure like you see every single person?
I do. And you know why? Because over the 50 years that I've been doing this work, I've had many occasions of people saying to me, Brian, I wrote you a letter about being gay and coming out, and you answered it, and gave me really good advice. And I did. I answered every single letter that I received in the mail, because I wanted to make sure that person didn't feel like they were alone, that they had at least one guy that they could call on a landline or put a postage stamp on the envelope, which is how we all communicated at the time.
I do something similar, different but similar, where any client of mine that once you become a client and we have sessions, I will respond to your text messages as soon as possible. I have basically within 24 hours, but usually it's within an hour or two or within 5 minutes. But it's the same thing, because I never want somebody to feel like there isn't somebody. I never want somebody to feel like they're alone. And
Yes.
it's completely altruistic, because when I was going through my dark nights of the soul, whatever you want to call them, going through that sort of time, there was a lot of time where I just felt alone. And I used to ask the universe, like, all right, you put me on this path, but there's no help being offered. And my lesson is to accept help, but there's no help for me. And I remember that feeling. And it was at that point where I was like, when I sort of decided to start doing energy work and calling it energy work, I made a very clear decision that I would only do energy work if I could do it my own way. And that way was, money will never be a reason that help is not offered. And
Yep.
I will always answer a text for free. The text.
Good for you. Yeah.
And
that's
I think
great.
it's, just like I have the startled 700, how do you do that? I receive the same response that other people, when they hear that I don't charge for text, they're like, oh, how much time? That's a lot of money that you could be earning. And I'm like, it's not about the money, but it's that thing. It's joy. It's the peace factor. Currency, peace.
When it can be about the money, like you're doing this for a corporation, then yes, I will take my fee.
True. When it's clear that everybody this is billing and there's an empty,
if it's an individual and you don't know what their background is, and you don't state in advance what this is going to cost you, your first response is, what, how can I help? What can I do?
Yeah, and I think obviously there are those people that take advantage, but that's for me to put the boundary in and be like, all right, now you're taking advantage. You need a full session. And I have to do that sometimes too. But the vast majority of people, it comes down to how we started, and we are ending our time, started with Cecilia just looking at humans and being in the humanity of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just being able to say, I'm here for humanity, and see me as a human too.
That's what she did, Cecilia. Because, I mean, how many women who are prostitutes feel that they have a champion, out there for them, who's going to go to city council meetings, who's going to show up for protests. And she did that for them, right? So they're not alone in the world. They've got one person who's been on television as an actress, right? I've got somebody out there for me.
Yeah.
And
it's
how important yeah, it is. And I'm hoping that what happened with the funeral and the response starts dialogue,
I hope so too. I hope people have the consciousness to look in the mirror
and say, okay, how do I feel about this?
Yeah. And where am I holding the double standard?
I had this friend of mine who wrote and said, they should, and I know we're running out, but this friend of mine who wrote and said, I think they should have been up front with the church. I said, so should they also say that this is the funeral of a gay activist who often chastised the church? and her loving me, felt like, well, if they were going to deny you the funeral, I wouldn't want you to tell them in advance.
I mean, again, coming back to my world, I don't think it's necessary. I think if we come back to the basic meaning of a church and come back to the basic idea that this is a building of community and it is a building of love, there should be no conditions. There should
Right,
be no, this person's allowed, but this person's not.
right.
If people want to congregate there in a place of love to celebrate a life, that's what it's there for. Use it.
I
And I
agree with
think
you.
we have to listen to these buildings because these buildings are saying, use me.
Yes, they are. The energy in it, the building itself, it's saying, come in here.
And if you take again and look at all of the prayers that are spoken in that specific building, they're about acceptance, they're about love, they're about being an open door to people in need. Use me. So if we're going to complain that our prayers are being answered, then go look in the mirror.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as always, this has been a fun.
And thank you for teaching me about Cecilia, and I will be celebrating her today.
Yeah, just look her up. Just Google her, and
I will do.
yeah, because I think she did remarkable work for people who are otherwise ostracized or misunderstood.
True. How beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Cecilia, for being in our lives today and always. And hopefully we can go forward in that legacy.
I hope so too. Well, we do, Hayley, we do, and so, as we continue with loving kindness and gratitude, move forward. And I look forward to our next conversation.
I do too. Lots of love to you, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, Hayley.
Bye.
Bye-bye.